Niccolò Machiavelli had a hero, a man he believed possessed the perfect blend of ruthlessness and cunning to unite Italy. His name was Cesare Borgia, but Borgia failed when his father died. His power evaporated. He was a prince who relied on luck of others, and his luck ran out. Machiavelli wrote The Prince as a manual for someone who could conquer fortune itself. He was looking for a ruler who could commit terrible violence to secure peace, lie to the public to ensure stability, and build a system that wouldn't collapse the moment he died. He didn't know it, but he was describing a man who had already lived 1,500 years earlier, born on September 23, 63 BC on Palatine Hill. His name was Gaius Octavius. History knows him as Augustus. He is the only man to ever score a perfect 100% on the Machiavellian checklist. Machiavelli's first lesson is that power is not given, it is taken, and to take it, you must be a lion capable of overwhelming force. In 43 BC, Octavian was not yet the emperor. He was one of the three warlords forming the second triumvirate. They had a problem. They had too many political enemies, and they were broke. So, Octavian did exactly what Machiavelli would later advise. He applied cruelty at one blow. It was called the proscriptions. This wasn't a battle. These were posted in the forum. 300 senators, 2,000 knights, anyone on the list could be killed by any citizen for a cash reward. Their property was seized to pay Octavian's troops. The most famous victim was Cicero, the greatest orator of Rome. Octavian had once called him father, but when political necessity demanded it, Octavian signed his death warrant. Cicero's head and hands were nailed at the rostra in the forum. A gruesome message to anyone who dared to speak against the new order. Machiavelli writes that injuries should be done all at once, so that being tasted less, they offend less. Octavian understood this perfectly. He committed his worst atrocities early, securing his power through fear, so he would never have to do it again on this scale. He was the lion, but soon he would need to become the fox. But terror alone is unstable. To rule for 40 years, you cannot just be a lion. You must be a fox. Machiavelli writes, those who have succeeded best have known how to represent this nature of a fox and be great pretenders. In 27 BC, Octavian pulled off the greatest political con in Western history. He stood before the Senate and announced he was retiring. He offered to give all his emergency power back to the people. He declared the Republic restored. The Senate, overwhelmed by this display of humility, and likely terrified of the alternative, refused to let him go. They begged him to stay. They granted him the title Augustus, the revered one. He humbly accepted, taking the princeps or first citizen, not king, never king, just the first among equals. But here is the trick. Augustus agreed to share power. He let the Senate govern the peaceful, wealthy provinces in the center places like Asia and Africa. These provinces had grain and trade, but they had no armies. Augustus kindly offered to burden himself with dangerous borders provinces, the ones that required military defense, the ones that held 25 of Rome's 28 legions. The Senate got the gavel, Augustus kept the sword. He maintained the illusion of a republic while legally holding absolute military command. Machiavelli advises that the prince should appear merciful, faithful, humane, and religious. Augustus wore the mask of the republic so convincing that even Romans forget they were living in a monarchy. Finally, we arrive at the ultimate question. Is it better to be loved or feared? Machiavelli says it is much safer to be feared than loved. But above all, he must abstain from being hated. Augustus secured fear through logistics. When he defeated Cleopatra, he didn't just annex Egypt, he made it his personal property. He forbade any senator from even entering Egypt without his permission. Why? Because Egypt produced the grain that fed Rome. Augustus held the literal keys to the city's stomach. The people knew that if they rebelled against him, the ship would stop and they would starve. That is absolute control. That is fear. But he avoided hatred by becoming the greatest patron in history. He established the Annona, the grain dole. He fixed the aqueducts. He created Rome's first fire department. He gave the people bread and circuses. The Senate hated him because he took their power, but them all loved him. They didn't care about the republic or liberty concept that only mattered to the rich. They cared that the civil wars were over and the bread was on time. Augustus bought their loyalty with safety. Machiavelli warned, men forget the death of their fathers sooner than the loss of their patrimony. Augustus killed their fathers in the proscriptions, but he filled their pocket with golds and their bellies with grain, and so they forgave him. History gives us a brutal control group. Julius Caesar was a man of virtue. In the modern sense, he was merciful. He forgave his enemies, he wanted to be loved, and for that mercy he was stabbed 23 times by the very man he spared. Augustus was a man of virtue. In the Machiavellian sense, prowess, adaptability, and ruthlessness, he did not forgive Brutus. He hunted him down, he did not tolerate dissent, he crushed it. He wore the mask of the fox and wielded the claws of the lion. And the result? Caesar gave Rome another civil war. Augustus gave Rome the Pax Romana, 2 centuries of relative peace and stability. He proved Machiavelli's darkest truth. Sometimes a good man makes a bad king, and a bad man makes a great emperor. On his deathbed, Augustus reportedly asked his friends, "Have I played the part well? Then applaud as I exit." He knew what Machiavelli knew. Power is a performance, and Augustus was the greatest actor who ever lived.